All right, so hi everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session of Firewise 101 in office hours. I'm Jennifer Valadez. I'm the project manager for Fire Safe Council for Monterey County. And today's session will be focused on the NFPA Firewise application webpage portal and also what you will need for your Firewise application renewals. As always, if you're new to this session, the first half will be on content, and then the second half is open for questions and discussions. I usually try to stay on till around 3 p.m. in case anyone trickles in or has any last minute questions. So we can get started. I like to start with some housekeeping. So as I mentioned before, this session is being recorded and will be available on YouTube afterwards. So if you're not comfortable with being on camera or having your voice recorded, please turn off your camera and go on mute and ask any questions you have in the chat. So as I mentioned, the monthly sessions are posted on YouTube. We have all our previous 4 sessions on YouTube, as well as our newsletter tutorial and our Firewise forum is also there with some really great set of speakers. And our Instagram is at FireSafe Monterey. I post the notifications for this session and also for any other events that we have. Speaking of events, we have lots of community events coming up. This Saturday has 2 events. So the Central Coast Good Fire Fair at Henry Cowell, the Aromas Tri-County Open House as well. Next week is on the 19th, the Carmel Valley Firewise Groups meeting. And also on October 22nd and October 29th, I'll be hosting Firewise renewal workshops, and I'll bring up the flyer for that soon. But the first session will be held at the Monterey County Regional Fire Protection District's Portola Station conference room. So that's more located towards the Highway 68/Carmel Valley groups, closer location for that. And then for the North County groups on October 29th, I'll be hosting that workshop at the Castro Valley Public Library. And then on the 23rd, the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History is hosting a fire safe landscaping panel. So I'll be speaking alongside Emily Aiken from Santa Lucia Preserve and the UC Master Gardeners. And then on the last Thursday of this month, we have our board meeting. So for the presentation, if we have a larger group, which today I think we do, you can wait until the end to answer for any questions or drop them in the chat. Again, turn off your camera if you would not like to be recorded. And the post-meeting survey pops up when you leave the meeting or when I end the session. And that's totally optional, but really appreciated. We also have a pre-meeting survey that also is really appreciated to get any feedback. For the office hours portion, please use the hand raising feature to speak or use the chat. Be mindful of everyone's time. A lot of questions around this time, so try to address them as much as I can, or we can always take it offline. And if you have any more questions, feel free to contact me, genv.ffcmc@gmail.com, or our Firewise Regional Coordinator, Richard Bates, at firewise.ffcmc@gmail.com. So to continue, I like to start with some community roles. So everyone has roles in creating a safer community. The residents with leading the Firewise effort, Fire Safe Council to provide this guidance and hold these sessions, and fire authorities to kind of support the data and what they need from us. And CAL FIRE has specifically outlined Firewise communities as being part of their wildfire preparedness strategy. So helping out the fire force in that way. And right now we're at the very end. So if you've been following this series, I hope you're ready to submit that application or submit any renewals that have coming up. Okay, to start with the agenda, so we have our pre-meeting survey, the webpage portal, creating a site profile, renewals, what you need for every year, every 3 years, and every 5 years. And then we'll wrap it up with some office hours. So we'll launch the pre-meeting survey. It is anonymous and totally optional, but greatly appreciated. So they're just about 4 questions. And yeah. I'll leave some time for everyone to answer that if they would like to do so. Okay, I see a lot are already Firewise USA sites, so that's good to see. Some Firewise leaders, awesome. All right, thank you so much. So that really gives some perspective of who's our team today. So there are many who have already been recognized as a Firewise site. Okay, I'll see if I can answer any of those questions that might come up. So I wanted to start with accessing the Firewise login portal. So this link, for some reason, is harder to find. I always have to go Firewise USA login. So I wanted to share this link in the chat as well. And it should generally, this is a full profile, but this is what it should look like. And if you're already have set up the account or you are looking to do it, this is where you'll find it. And then you have to sort of click through it. I went through it this morning, and in a previous Firewise presentation from CAL FIRE representatives, it was suggested that communities create a specific email account for Firewise communications. It could just be Firewise community name at gmail.com, just to help with if there are any changes in resident leaders or there are any changes in board members. There's the one email communications that is used throughout the process, creating the account, the action plan, assessments, renewals, etc. And then this email can be used to create the account. Or it can also help if there are any changes in board members. So then we see this landing page of creating a site profile. And you can either let NFPA access your location and it will sort of show your coordinates. If you do not want your coordinates to be shared, you can just type in where your community is located at. Once you've entered it, you just click create new site to just move forward on to the next step. And then it's creating a site profile. So they'll ask you, what is your role? So if you're a resident leader or helping, on our end, if it's Richard Bates, then he'll click regional coordinator. But in most cases, it's, I'm a resident leader and taking on this initiative. So you can add the regional coordinator's email, which I mentioned before, is firewise.ffcmc@gmail.com. And then you'll name your community. There's not really any mandatory naming convention here. So if your community is affiliated with an HOA, you can use that, or a street name, region. Any of those are up to consider for naming. And then your community is assigned a state representative automatically. And in the time that I've been with Fire Safe Council, this has changed. I believe now it's Shelly Redden with CAL FIRE, and she's been the one that's been giving any feedback on applications. I'm not too sure where her role stands with renewals, but that's currently the state representative. And then you'll be asked about dwelling units in the boundary of your Firewise site, how many residents, and then if you have a website, but this is optional, or if you have a social media page, you can plug that in there. Or a cover image, like a logo. I suggest you could use Canva for this. They have some free resources to do that. but please make sure to note the number of dwelling units and residents. This comes up consistently throughout the application and is really a point that CAL FIRE insists to be cohesive and the same across all applications or all documents. After that, site contact information. So confirm the information of your site, and it's just ensuring that the FPA has a mailing address for your materials, such as a sign and some brochures. And then you can order, I think at a time it's 25 brochures at a time through every order through the community site, through the site portal, and then continue to just move on to the application portion. In the application portion, you'll be asked for these 3 key documents. So one of them being a site map. This is from Nevada City. This very different looking one, but is certainly a route you can take. And Fire Safe Council has a video on how to do a site map and the different options that you have as a Firewise community to move forward with the site map. You also need a community risk assessment, which was the last, I think the 3rd session that we had, and then an action plan, which was the latest session that we had. So now we can get into renewal information. So every year, your Firewise community needs to host an outreach event, and that event can be done in collaboration with other local Firewise communities, such as the Carmel Valley Firewise community or group has several in that space that are taking the credit for that outreach event. And then you have to track risk reduction investments, including time and monetary expenses. And there are some examples here that we'll include and we'll go over. At a minimum, each site is required to invest the equivalent of 1 volunteer hour per dwelling unit in wildfire risk reduction actions each year. So for example, if your site has identified 100 homes within its boundaries, then 100 hours of work or the monetary equivalent is required. And the monetary equivalent is the independent sector volunteer time, I believe. Let me look this up actually, give you all the accurate information. Yes, so NFPA uses the independent sector value of volunteer time. So then it would be $33.49 per volunteer hour. And here are some examples of actions you can take that the NFPA has deemed. So yeah, this time has changed. So, coordination of wildfire related outreach events. So for example, the North County groups did an ACE hardware event, which then after that, they had done that outreach event, travel time to risk reduction meetings, orientation trainings and workshops. Yeah, so this is available through the slides. You can look at it. Debris removal. So let's say you hire a landscaper or a gardener to do that. Then you just track how much you have spent on that. You don't need to submit invoices. It's purely on, just reporting it. But no need to kind of audit that or show that time. And here's also a volunteer hourly worksheet that could be sent out to community members. And then they just turn it back in, and then you can calculate how much your community has spent through volunteer hours or monetary on wildfire risk reduction activities. And it's suggested that you can save this throughout the year. You don't need to wait until the very end to put in your activities. You can access the portal throughout the year and enter your events or investments. And just make sure to save this and log your record and reset the fields, allowing you to make additional entries. You continue on to the next section or save and close your application. From my understanding, there were some Firewise communities that submitted renewals very early on. And I believe those were rejected. They were, I'm sorry. I heard from one of the CAL FIRE representatives that they're really hoping within October, November to then approve those. So you really want to give enough time for your communities to do those wildfire risk reduction activities before submitting it, even if you have met the requirements. So every 3 years, you'll have to review and update your action plan. And through the community dashboard, you can see when your next update is due. If your community's action plan is up for renewal this year, make sure to use the most current template. I believe this was updated about a year ago. I'll have to see because so it's the California required 3-year action plan. If yours doesn't look like this and you need to update it, you'll have to use this format. It's just a fillable PDF, but I know some people have had trouble with saving this. Either they close out the tab and it doesn't save. So maybe doing in a Word document, copy pasting is a good way to approach this. So then every 5 years, your community risk assessment will need to be reviewed and updated. Again, check your dashboard to make sure when your next update is due. And if you have an old risk assessment and it's the time to renew it or update it, then you use the provided NFPA template as well, which should be this one. So I wanted to cover some sort of miscellaneous information or more information that might come up during the renewal process. So if your community has grown or wants to change its boundaries, you'll need to update the number of dwelling units and submit a new boundary map to the NFPA's Firewise team. And if it grows substantially, it might trigger the need for a new 3-year action plan or risk assessment. So really keep that in mind if you're looking to expand to any greater extent than more than a few homes, say, for example. And if your community has changed in board members, you can add or change the contacts. If there are resident leader changes or login information questions, the previous leader can go into the portal, add a new resident leader by clicking on Managing Contacts. On the community dashboard, this will allow the new resident leader to create their own personal login associated with that Firewise community. If you do not have the current login information for your site or having trouble logging in, you can also contact the Firewise team. I believe through the same email, firewise@nfpa also added their information here if you want to submit a request, but I suggest going through this email. I believe it's a team of 3, so they're kind of managing that email at a time. Also, you can click around your renewal application. It does not have to be done in one sitting. And you can just save it through that portal. Also, I wanted to bring attention to Fire Adapted Big Sur's Rainer Mark's Firewise USA application tutorial that he helped create in collaboration with Fire Safe Council about 2 years ago, back in 2023. And it has some good information. It's on our Firewise USA page. And this is also applicable to renewals or if you're starting. So he's made a great concise application process tutorial that you could revisit as well. So now with that, I can open the floor to any questions, or if you have questions later, please feel free to reach out via email to myself or the Firewise Regional Coordinator, or you can send it to our general email, info@firesafemonterey.org if you have a question outside of the scope of Firewise, and I can see who within our team can answer it. So I'll open the floor to any questions, if there are any. And in the meantime, I can also pull up the renewal workshop flyer. Yeah, I see, Joanne, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Jennifer, on the site profile, you said the number of residents and the number of homes. Is it within the boundaries, even if they're not participating? Do we need to count them even if they're not participating, or only the people who've actually been participating?
From my understanding, it's whoever is within that boundary. But I think sometimes, if it's just a community member assessing that boundary and seeing how many people are there, it could vary, but it just needs to remain consistent across the application.
Okay, because we
Yeah,
have
I
like,
don't think they'll go in and check what how accurate it is, but at least a good estimate.
well, yeah, my question then just becomes if it's a set hour per
Mm-hmm.
household, then, not that we wouldn't meet we're going to meet it and exceed it, but
Yeah,
I just want to be consistent moving forward.
yeah, yeah. I are because I know your community will be renewing, right?
Yes.
Yes, so I don't think you'll need to update that, just having to meet. I mean, it's within the same boundary unless you are updating that boundary.
Yeah,
Mm.
no, the boundary, I mean, we added some folks last year just
Mm,
further down the road, and I just want to make sure that I'm being consistent in what I report. So,
yeah.
if you're saying there's 100 houses in a boundary, then that community, even if there's only 8 houses like ours,
Hmm.
participating, we have to have 800 hours. So,
Yeah.
and again, we're going to exceed that too, but just for consistency's sake.
Yeah. I would say report what you think is the most accurate or
Okay.
most that resonates the most with your community.
Okay.
It's to,
Thank you.
yeah. Thanks for your question.
Think, Jennifer,
Yeah.
I think you may have really answered this already. You said basically if you change the boundary.
Hmm.
Now, there are a couple of our Firewise communities who have put a larger circle around than they have active participants in hopes of engaging those remaining participants to become active members of the Firewise community. And so they're all counted. So I think you're right. I think it's the total count that would be the hours that you'd have to be reporting on. But
Yeah.
you don't have to redo your maps, I don't believe, unless you actually change the boundary. And the question there that I would have, and I don't know the answer to this, is so they have between what is it, 8 properties and 2,500. If for some reason your boundary goes beyond the larger amount or smaller than the smaller amount, how might that affect um, your Firewise community as far as the NFPA is? So that is a question
Yeah.
we should ask.
Yeah. So I can note that and ask. From my understanding, there's kind of that estimate, but just keeping it the same across. You
Right.
might not get, the census data for the boundary, but at least it's the most accurate
Mm-hmm.
about. So, yeah. But it's a good point to consider if you are updating that or you have concerns about meeting the hours as well. So I see Bob has his hand up as well. Want to go ahead?
Hmm. Yeah, I had a question on the renewal.
Hmm.
And if you're doing an earlier renewal and you're inputting like hours or events that you did, do you know that if you go back in, whether or not whatever you put in now, does it add to it or does it rewrite it over? Do you have to start from scratch? How does that work?
For
So let's
safety,
say during the
yeah.
year, you're asking your residents for their hours that they put in.
Hmm.
And, like in February or March, your residents give you a bunch of hours. And so you go to the you go to the Firewise portal, you plug those hours in. And then later in the year, you get another stack of hours and money spent. Does that rewrite over the top of everything or does it just add to it? In other words,
Be adding to it.
does this sum, so, okay, so it adds to it. So it's like a listing of additional, so it's like every time you put input in, it's recording it there for you.
Hmm.
Okay.
So it should be, so let's say like each stack of paper is its own line, then it should just be adding to then get the total at the end.
Okay. So as you get input from your residents, it's probably a good idea to put it into the portal. So then it's there.
Yeah,
And you're not stuck having to do it all at one time in October.
yeah.
That way you can keep track of it throughout the year. Um, what I do is I take my forms and my residents and I scan them and I put them on the Google Drive and I have them there and then I'm just ready to do it all at one time. But or the other way I was thinking is I can just submit all in a spreadsheet on my own and then just punch it in because they don't really care to have it by they don't really care if you give it to them by individual resident or by a consolidated report, right? I mean, it's not you're not reporting it by resident anyway.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be, but if that's how you have it and and
Mhm.
it's easier for you to do so, then yes, but I think whatever is the least workload going on in the future would be best. Um, yeah, so you could input it throughout the year. Doesn't need to be necessarily around October on or November.
Yeah, and it's probably okay. And then the other part of this that I didn't see touched on is I think that they asked for, and I'm not 100% sure of this. I think that they asked for how much vegetation you removed
Mhm.
Yes.
in some place, but this is not reflected on the NFPA individual homeowner worksheet anywhere.
Hmm.
So I modified that worksheet.
Yeah.
I heavily modified that worksheet actually to have at the bottom an area where you put down how much yard waste you got rid of in terms of, and people would say, well, I don't know how many yards this is or that. Because I think they asked for how many yards you got rid of. I'm not 100% sure of that either. So I just put in at the bottom of the spreadsheet, okay, if you have a green waste container, it's usually this many yards.
Hmm.
If you have a dump truck, it's this many yards. If
Yeah.
you have a trailer or a pickup truck load, it's this many yards. And then the other part, I think I remember them, they actually split it into whether you got rid of it or whether you burnt it too.
Hmm.
I'm not quite sure of that. I need to go back. But anyway, I'm trying to track that too in terms of how many burn piles did you have, how big were they, and how many yards did you get rid of? And, um, I think they were asking for that, or somebody was. I can't remember whether it
Yes,
was
I believe they
NFPA or
do.
Cal Fire.
And they give some conversion examples as well. Like the barrel is a this amount, or lets you input how much, or like how many bags, for example. So that's a good point. I should touch on that point.
Yeah,
I have to look more into, let me see, let's see how this looks like. Download again, but yeah, so this is just money spent, not work done.
right. So
Yeah.
below that, I made another table, or actually in additional notes, I made a
Mhm.
table that was essentially green waste removed, yard waste removed or
Yeah.
disposed of, and how it was disposed of, whether it was taken off to landfill or um, burnt. And then actually, I had one resident that said, "Oh, okay, I got rid of this stuff, but I composted on site."
Mm.
Okay, I guess that works.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good point to, if you want to add to the volunteer worksheet, as Bob did, the how much was removed. not necessarily money spent, but estimate for how many trash cans or bags were removed. And from there, I'll have to look at the conversion and add it to the slides that the NFPA provides through the application. To make
Yeah,
sure.
and I'm not sure if NFPA was so much interested in that as I think that tends to be more of a CAL FIRE thing.
Yeah.
Where CAL FIRE seems to have that metric of how much fuel is removed or how many acres are treated. I know that in the grants,
Right.
that's one of the things that the people who are reporting on grants seem to always bring up is that CAL FIRE wants to know how many acres are treated, and they basically back that out by how many yards of material you've removed. So,
Yeah.
okay, that's it.
Thanks, Bob.
So
Yeah.
Jennifer, just quickly on this one, I very quickly did a search on that and it says no. To answer Bob's question directly, the National
Mhm.
Fire Protection Association does not require communities to report the tonnage of materials removed on their Firewise annual reports. The program focuses on documenting wildfire risk reduction actions through volunteer hours and financial investment. So I would imagine if you are investing to have it carted away by the ton, then it's possible that you could report that since you would be expending that on your annual report, but not the tonnage.
Or here how much time you spent. Like,
They do want the
giving
volunteer
away.
hours and investments, yes.
Yeah, the
So,
volunteer hours and investment, yeah, that's a separate item, but
yeah,
I
Yeah.
think when I went through the renewal before, they were asking for how much was being disposed of.
Hmm.
And I don't think it, like I said, I don't think it's something that NFPA cares that much about, but I think California was pushing that issue.
Okay. Georgia, I see your hand up as well. I think you were the first to raise your hand.
You're right. Sorry, I think I was waving it earlier, or clapping. But anyway, my question is, does it matter what browser you're using when you're accessing? Because originally I had a lot of trouble like doing the cut and paste when I would write out documents and then try to paste them in. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a lot of trouble. And later it seemed like it might have been an issue with my browser, Safari versus like Chrome. And I'm using a Mac with Safari, so. Is that something that's come to your attention?
Yes, a little bit in the past where it just hasn't saved the work, whatever someone
Yes.
has written hasn't
Yes.
saved. Um, I think in the past, I think Safari has given issues, Chrome less so. That's what I've been using, but I haven't filled out completely and then try to go back to it. But I think people have converted it to Word, and that has worked as well. PDF to
Okay.
Word.
Yeah, I was just hoping not to encounter any other
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, I see. Or just saving it each time and then reopening it might help too. Not on this one, but I think on this one might.
This is where, yes, this is where I
Yeah.
had trouble. And then also it didn't like look correct. I can't
Mhm.
explain it. It just
Yeah, it like
when it,
shifts a bit if when you
yes,
do it. Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
Kind of
horrible. It
weird
was
to
like,
go through.
oh, yeah. Okay. So Chrome has less issues. Is that what I'm hearing?
Hmm.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks. David, I saw your hand up next.
Yeah, I had a question about renewal.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get the timeframes correct and what a year really means. So we became recognized as Firewise in March of this year, and our 3-year plan doesn't start till 2026, as I understand it. That's what was in our application.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's January 1 to December 31st of 2026. But given that we became Firewise recognized in March of 2025, am I keeping track of things in 2025 that we do after we became Firewise recognized, or do I wait till 2026 starts? Because that's when the 3-year action plan begins. I'm a little confused. And when will we actually submit a renewal?
So this year you will not have to submit a renewal if you were recognized this year, but you will need to submit a renewal for next year. So I think they recognize the calendar year, so starting January 1st. But you could still, I think that's how they do it. That's a good question on that. I think there was a different question from someone else on when to keep track of that. Pam, I saw you might have nodded. So if you have a little bit more information on that.
No, you're absolutely right. If you are awarded in year 1, you do not have to do a year-end report for that year, but you do have to start the next year. I think the question is, do I include from March to December of the first year in my reporting? And I think yes. They're looking for all of the information you can give them. As long as it's noted that it is for the initial year. So it would be the, say, 3 months in year 1 plus all of year 2 would be your first action plan. That's the way I read it. I think we could get clarification on that, but I would, I would just guess that that's what they'd be looking for.
Yeah, because it's still work done.
Right.
It's still, the active work that the community is doing. Why shouldn't it count? So I would include it anyway under the reporting for next year.
Yep.
Okay, so just for clarification, then we do keep track of what we do this year, but when would the renewal be submitted?
Next year. If you were recognized this year, then you do not need a renewal next year. So next year, November 2026.
Okay. And so in that, so there we would denote what we've done, any kind of outreach that we need to do, meeting all the requirements for renewal before November of 2026.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
No problem. I think Margaret, she left a comment as well. Or if you want to ask your question or if you have any comments.
Yeah, hi. My original reason for raising my hand was about the vegetation removal. So I did put that in the comment that even though it doesn't appear on that NFPA volunteer worksheet, our understanding, and so maybe as Bob said, maybe it is a CAL FIRE requirement that the vegetation removal does need to be reported. And I think I remember Richard and some others talking about last year at renewal time that a number of renewals were kicked back because they hadn't included the vegetation removal. And it is kind of confusing, if it doesn't appear in the NFPA site, then it's a little confusing. But what my other question is we were recognized as Firewise Community in April of 24. And so we did not do a renewal application in 24. And so we're doing our first renewal application now. And my understanding from Richard at the time, when I was asking last year, fall of 24, was there really wasn't a place to, because we would be looking at potentially capturing 8 months of 2024 activities in addition to 2025. My understanding at the time was we really aren't capturing that the balance of what we did in 2024. We met the minimum, we met all the requirements when we submitted our application in April of 24. So my understanding was that we're not going back and trying to capture all the rest of that 2024 data. We're recording 2025 data. So if that's not correct, we need to have a better understanding of that.
Yeah. So I think so. You said back in April 2024, if I remember.
Is when we were recognized, correct.
Okay. Yeah.
And so our activities did continue in 2024, but we were not required to do a renewal at that time. And I had asked Richard, last fall, 24, are we capturing that information anywhere? And he said, certainly at the time, you can't put it in your original application. The application is not a place where you can capture that data. So we have just started reporting our data for 2025. So that's what I'm planning to include. What we were planning to include in our renewal for 2025 is the data that pertains to 2025, not the additional 8 months of activity that occurred in 2024.
Do you have the activity recorded from 2024?
Not in the kind of detail that we do for 25.
Okay. Well, I think there is still enough time to meet the requirements anyway. And it's, yeah. So if you do meet the requirements with 2025 and can kind of patch in a bit information from 2024, then I think that should be fine as well.
Yeah, we're meeting and exceeding the goals of, what's required for 2025 without trying to capture the data from the balance of 24.
Yeah.
I need some clarification on if that information is required.
Yeah. I see Pam might have a
Yeah,
comment.
Jennifer, I just did some double checking for you. So this is AI, so we always take it with a grain of salt. But AI says, yes, if a Firewise community was approved 6 months before the year ends, the activities from that partial year should be included in the first annual renewal report.
That's good to know. Thanks, Pam. So I think whatever you can gather from 2024 per that answer could benefit from being in the application or in the renewal. So you might not have it recorded that much in detail, but if you do have any details to be included, then I think it'll be good. Yeah, so all of these questions, I'll note them to then be addressed in our other workshops as well that we have coming up towards the end of the month. So I have the flyer here. If you're able to attend, please do so. If you're not, then we will be recording these as well. You can join through Zoom or in person, wherever you're closest to. And I hope to get the more specific questions answered here and look through the renewal format and portal, how that looks like at this time on Wednesday, the 22nd and the 29th. I see Joanne and Georgette still have their hands up. If either of you want to go, yeah.
I have another question. It's kind of along what Margaret just said, but I'm working with a group right now that are very enthusiastic, and we were working on their application, and the gentleman wants to know all the money that's been spent so far. Where does he record that? And I don't know if I don't remember it in the application, to tell you the truth. Um, but he's not even approved yet. And they're already into the thousands of dollars on what what they're doing. So, is there somewhere where that will be recorded, or is it in the application somewhere, things that people have already done prior to becoming Fire or during this process of becoming Firewise?
Yeah, so in the process, so in the initial application, I don't think that
I don't think
it's
so either.
noted. No, not that I remember.
I think maybe I'll just have him keep track of it, and
Yeah.
if he can, if he gets to it by the end of the year and he gets approved, then they can save it and piggyback it like we were just talking about with Margaret.
Yeah.
We'll just see. I'll have them keep it organized at the very least. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. And I'll also note that question to add to this slideshow. Georgette, do you still have a question?
I do. We became official in spring of 24, so that carried us through, or is carrying us through 25. When might I expect the information I need to submit for the 3-year and 5-year plans? is that like 3 years from March of 24, or is that
Oh,
3 years after the renewal and 5 years after the renewal? Because there's that long
Yeah.
space of time. Is my question clear?
Yeah. So, okay, let's see the example here. Not that one. So it would have to be, so let's say in 2026, or you submit 2025, or in your case, 2024, and then your action plan is through 25, 26, and 27, then it'll be, I believe, 27
Okay.
when you'll be submitting that. And I see Pam
Okay.
has her hand up. She might have some more information.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or
Sorry.
you have a comment I just saw.
Yeah. This goes back to whether or not you can count volunteer hours
Oh,
on the application during the application. And once again, AI has answered this for us. It says, yes, funds spent and volunteer hours contributed during the Firewise application process can be counted toward a community's annual investment requirement.
okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pam. And does that mean for the first year?
I apparently this is
Okay,
AI, so again, Joanne, take it with a grain of salt. You could
sure.
probably go online and find out more information. But briefly and in summary, it says that yes, while you were working on the Firewise application, those funds and volunteer hours can be counted, which would be the next year if you're accepted
Okay,
annual investment requirement. So
perfect.
do track all of the work that you do in advance. It's one of the few things where you can actually count work that you've done before you've been approved. Most of our
Awesome.
grants doesn't count, but with
Right.
Fairwise it does. So that's a big boon for us.
Thank you. I have one question, just real quick. At the seminar in person and on Zoom, is someone from the powers that be that actually read these reports going to be there?
No, unfortunately
Okay.
not. So it'd just be myself as well.
Okay.
And so mostly a space for everyone to, if you have, the paperwork of work done and you need a time to just go through it and submit it, then that's a time to do so as well. Any other questions, things like this too.
Okay.
So mostly just co-working space, going through what you need as well. So
Okay. Thank you.
But Joanne, I'm
Yes.
going to recommend Jennifer is offering her time on this. And if you do have questions, or if anyone you know has questions going through the renewal, get them to Jennifer before the meetings via email
Okay.
so that we can research them if need be and have good answers for
Oh,
you at that time.
good point. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
yeah, and to go back to Georgette's question, so then I believe 2027 will be when you have to do that action plan. So it's after those 3 years when during that renewal time. So then the next one, your next action plan would start in 2028, 29, and then 30. The next
Okay.
action plan.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a little confusing, I think, when
Yeah.
you're official early on in a given calendar year.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of
That's
different where how they do the calendar years, but yeah, just keep that track.
okay. Thank you so much.
No problem. And I saw Robert's question, does installing a generator count for your renewal due to the fact that they turn off the electricity when we are in a fire risk? Bob, I see your hand up right now too. If you have more.
No, that was my question,
Okay.
and I was just curious because we've had our power turned off several times due to fire risk, and that was one of the reasons I put a generator in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see through here. Let's see if there are any improvements as maintenance on the home and outbuildings. This might be where it falls in to that. Clean generator. See that. Mm. So I see home improvement expenses. Maybe this might be where it falls in.
So
Might.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
AI is becoming my best friend here. So again, take this with a grain of salt, double check this, but it says no, a resident cannot
Oh, I
declare
see.
the cost of a generator on their Firewise USA program costs, as generators are not considered a Firewise mitigation activity or a deductible expense within the program framework. Individual actions like landscaping, clearing vegetation, and using ignition-resistant building materials to reduce wildfire risk, I think, could be included in that. Sorry, Bob.
No, Pam, thank you for asking because I thought the same thing, but I was asked the question.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. See, Margaret has her hand up as well.
Yeah, hi. I'm just following up on, again, the question of what information is included at the time of application. So, and I wasn't sure if it was Georgette or maybe Joanne that asked that. You do include at the time of application, it's like you said, Pam, the data of what you have been doing. It kind of goes by calendar years, my understanding.
Right.
So from, say, in our case, from January through March of 24, the hours that we had done, the vegetation removal that our community had done, monies spent, all of those things was included in the application, and some educational activities that we had done with our board, et cetera. So that was included in our application, and at the time of application, we met the requirements, even for the year, because the amount of hours and money spent that we had, even at that time of recognition, had met what it was for the year. And so our understanding from Richard was there wasn't a way to add to it in 2024. There, in the way that there is with a renewal, you can't add information to the application. It's just the application just stands. So the information about us needing to capture, say, another 6 months of data for the balance of 2024 in the present renewal is new information for me, because that was not something that we were aware of, that we would need to include that additional 6 months of data in this renewal.
Yeah. I'm sorry for any, misguiding information earlier on, but whatever data that you do have could be useful to add. I mean, still, if they're looking at the calendar year anyway, and you meet or exceed those requirements, as you said, then I think it should be totally fine. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm sorry to hear if there were any confusing information on that. David, I see your hand up as well.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So
Yeah.
I had a question in our action plan for the first year. We had a lot of work to be done in the 0 to 5 foot region. We have a lot of wood chips, and we have junipers right up against some of the units. But we also have landscapers come in once a week, 2 guys work 8-hour shifts, and we only have 48 units in our HOA. So you can imagine that in 4 weeks, we've met our requirement just in terms of the landscaping, without doing any of the actual action plans, which I have to have the board approve because it's going to be quite expensive to remove all that redwood chips that are up against the houses and get rid of all these junipers. It's like $30,000 we've had to bid. So I was curious as to, if are we meeting the action plan? I have to get the board to approve something and spend money, but we're going to meet all the hours just in our landscaping anyway, even if we don't actually do the fire mitigation. That's really important to do. I was just curious about that. If the board doesn't approve those funds, but we still meet the hours, just do our landscaping work, which is basically removing vegetation every week. How that's going to sit. I mean, do the guys who read these things go back and look at your action plan and see how many things you actually accomplished with your action plan and how many things you didn't?
From my understanding, it's if you meet the investment requirements. I'm not too sure about the action plan. It's more of a guideline on what you hope to do. You can't really, you can write it in, but if it doesn't happen, then you know. Just noting that there was an
So-
effort made for those. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Just, that's a tough one. I can understand where there's some confusion there. So basically, you're in an HOA and the HOA doesn't want to fund the expense, but the homeowner ends up funding the expense.
Oh,
So even though it's not included in the HOA's in the home, in the community's expense, the homeowner has paid for it. So according to AI, yes, a Firewise community can count the cost of hiring outside landscapers to do defensible space work around homes towards its required annual investment. So if you can show proof that your homeowners have paid for this, you can count it. That's the way I read this. But this one does probably require some clarification. If it's the community that's the HOA, that's the Firewise, I don't see why, when you're counting in individuals and individual homes, if the individuals are paying for this, it can't be counted. So that could use some additional clarification, but I think the answer is yes.
Well, as a resident, we can't do anything with the outside vegetation ourselves. We're not allowed to.
Okay,
See an
oh,
R.
I see.
okay,
So
got
you have
it.
to get the
Okay.
board to do it, and the board would pay for it. And I know the law is going to change here come January with a 0 to 5 feet. So I think there may be a requirement to clear that 0 to 5 foot vegetation. I'm not quite sure where that law is yet.
Okay, so anything that the homeowners association does do that meets the requirements of the defensible space, of the Firewise program, yes, but that's a good question, Jennifer. We should ask that through Richard to the organization itself.
I think all of that counts because you just report it as one big sum anyway. NFPA doesn't ask for what individual homeowners do. They ask for what your community does, right?
Yeah.
And
That's
so
true.
if the community does it through the HOA, then you just report it. I mean, it's like anything else. There's no tracking back to individual people, and and I think something that Pam said kind of bothered me. She said, if you can prove this, well, nobody ever
Nobody's
asked
asking.
to be
That's right.
proving things.
That's
You
right,
don't have
Bob.
to show receipts. You don't have to show invoices. You don't have to show time cards.
Right.
Don't even have to show dates. So I would say, if your homeowners association does work in the defensible space area, then yeah, count it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Bob, for that clarification. I didn't mean to mislead you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So we're at 3:01 and I'll stop the recording now.